Now what he is asking for is that understanding, that ability to look at life in a different way, to understand life in a different way. So this is that what we call the non-dualistic wisdom. That wisdom is not the wisdom about some process or some technique. This is the wisdom about ourselves. This is the wisdom of who we are, what we are. So this essential wisdom is asking. So fundamentally, what is this problem? This is the age-old problem everybody is pursuing, but nobody has addressed it as deeply, as profoundly as it is done in Vedanta. So now, are we just claiming this? No, let us analyze. Is it just a claim that we are saying Vedanta is addressing this? See, first, there are different models the world is looking at. What happens after death? This is the fundamental question he's asking. Yayam prete vichikitsa manushya asti tyeke nayam asti iti cheke. Is there something after death? So this is an age-old problem. First, if you look at it, philosophers have looked at it. Like in my first class, I mentioned, in that story, Shakespeare quotes Hamlet as saying, I would have killed myself, but nobody has come back from that land, like nobody who has died has come back. So I'm not sure. So in other words, that question is that what happens after that? This is a very fundamental question. So what from a scientific point, most common material science, way they look at it is there are processes in the body that is functioning. When all those processes are functioning, then there is some entity that becomes conscious. So, like if the mind is functioning, my lungs are functioning, and the blood is flowing to the brain, everything. Then what happens? All these processes are functioning that keeps the consciousness or that entity conscious. So this is a fundamental scientific view. So what happens here? Those materials, those matter is the cause of consciousness. All those material things bring about consciousness. So this is a common scientific view. And if we really look at it, most of us look at life that way. As long as I'm functioning, the body is good, I'm okay, I'm alive, I'm conscious. Something is okay. So this is one model, Now the other spiritual answers to this is that religion. What religion says is that somehow you have come. There is not much of explanation in most religion why you have come, how you have come, and all that. Somehow you have come. I mean, I'm just talking mostly about those Judeo-Christian and all that. Some other Indian, like very basic religious views. That somehow I've come and somehow I will die at one day. But at death, not everything is gone. There is a promise for you. What is the promise is, if you have been good or if you've done certain things, then you'll go to heaven. If you haven't, then you'll go to hell. But who goes to heaven, who goes to hell, there is all different opinions. But there is some entity called soul that goes somewhere after death. So this is a common, basic, rudimentary religious view. Now comes most of the Indian darshanas, including many of the Nastika darshanas in India, who subscribe to this philosophy of karma and rebirth. There is this entity which came to this world because of certain karma, and then because of certain kind of actions, merits, and all that, this entity has gained certain virtue, certain role, like as we talked, certain birth, certain life situations, and finally death. These are determined by your previous actions. There's not like some god or somebody will come and say, okay, you cannot live anymore. It is just your actions have brought you so much thing. But God, in some way, there is like this god of death and all that. They will kind of decide when, until when, how, and all that you will live, what merits you get. So these things were somewhat predetermined, but to some effect, you also have freedom. to act on that. Then came mostly the many discussions in Buddhism. Buddhism went completely against this thing of Atma, what we call as soul. They said there is Anatma. There is no Atma. There is no such thing as Atma. So this became a big debate, because until now, all of us, whether we came from basic religion, like Vedic religion, or whether we came from the contemplative Indian darshanas, we said there is some consciousness entity is there. They said there is no consciousness entity, but there is rebirth. So how do you attribute for rebirth? So there, Buddha didn't explain much, but the later philosophers, what they said is that whatever you created, those samskaras, or what they call a sankhara in Pali, those sankhara will take form. Only the sankhara will take form. There is no you in that. That's habits are just like how those are. Everything else is like water is. There's just that water will go somewhere else. There is no like you in there. There's no I entity in there that will take birth. So this, what happened is like what we call is that again what is happening is that this is where now the science, one of the basic discussion in the science of consciousness, has come up with a very basic discussions on what is called as the hard problem of consciousness, where they actually, the one basic question which a lot of discussion has come up is that how can objective functions, or how can objective processes lead to a subjective experience? So if I put it in a simpler way, like all these things is happening in my body, and let us say these thoughts are also happening in my mind. These are all happening, but it gives me a subjective experience. I feel I experience this. Like if something happened to me, whether a good thing or a bad thing in my past, I feel that happened to me. That subjective thing is there. What has caused this subjective thing? Where does the subjective thing come from? How did it become subjective? So this fundamental question, is actually the reason why Advaita Vedanta came up with this thing of what is consciousness. So for consciousness, in a very nutshell, I will not go because it will come later. In a nutshell, it is said that there is a subjective identity of consciousness, and there is an impersonal aspect of consciousness, personal and impersonal. So in one way that addresses also this Buddhist thing of what they call a stream of consciousness, flowing from life to life. But yet that stream of consciousness is not completely impersonal. It can take a personal form. It can become this individual, this identity, and yet it is not that identity. So here is where, that famous thing, that Mahavakya, Ayam Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. So that where that little self or little identity is equated to the universal identity, that God. Okay, so that all that will come later. So now just coming back to this fundamental thing. So if we take this thing, what is this question? What is the question he's asking? So there, Shankaracharya in the says he's asking for something deha, sharira, indriya, buddhi, vyatirikta. So what is there separate from body, senses, mind, and intellect? So let's say moment you die, or let's say I die. Let's say this entity dies. So the body stops functioning, the senses stop functioning, the mind stops functioning. The intellect stops functioning. So now, when all this is not there, is there something? So that Shankaracharya here clarifies the question. The question is not just like, does the mind take rebirth? Does the thoughts take rebirth? Does that feelings take rebirth? Is there something beyond all these entities which take rebirth? So to basically unpack this, what he's asking here is that fundamental question all of us have at some point or other in life. Some of us are willing to investigate it. Those who are really spiritually adept, and those who have that real hunger for spiritual truth, like Ramana Maharshi, they're willing to go all the way with this inquiry. So this quest, like when in childhood, we might ask our someone, like our parents or somebody, what happened to my grandmother? Where did she go or something? And they might give you some answer, or she went to the sky, or she went to heaven, or he went there. And we are happy with that. Then the quest has ended. But here we really want to know now the quest. What is there after life? What is there after death? Something exists. What is that entity? It exists. Some people say something exists. Some people say nothing exists. The end, that is the end, like as a materialist would say, if that is the end, then just live, have a good life, enjoy your life, then don't worry about anything, you just go through. There's no consequences, nothing. And for those of us, so that way, what happens is, somehow they go through life, even though mentally they will still have agony, because the mental results of your actions are instantaneous. It is not like everything is karma, you'll get suffering only later. So even if you take like that, you still have to live a good life. So even if you're an atheist who don't believe in thing, that life has to be lived well. But let's say, okay, whatever it is, you don't, or you just go through, then those karma will account later according to the karmic view. Those who are living the life of karma, there is another struggle. Of course, there's a good thing also that's something after life that survives. But the other struggle is like, that, there is so much wrong I might have done, all this, then this baggage I have to carry, it will come, or this life, I got all this because of bad karma I did. So I must have been a bad person somewhere. So all this, is that another problem in this life problems we start encountering. So is that point here is that if we look at just at that level of continuity of that self, then there is not much hope, because you might do a lot of good things, you get to heaven, but then again something might go wrong, and again you might come back. So that aspect of liberation is a long drawn process. So as many bad karmas you have done, so many good karmas you should do. And also you're always on the edge. Like as I say, it's a razor's edge. One wrong action you do, again you slip. So this is a big problem. So the chances of freedom is almost nil in that case, So, it's like maybe somebody who's like so cautious, so vigilant. This is where, a lot of this deep kind of mindfulness practices, all that have come. Every moment, every second, you have to be vigilant, because one wrong thought comes, then that creates an impression, that creates another route. So it's a long process there. So here he's asking, like, really, what is the way out of this? How can I become free? So the commentator has one fundamental question. When he asks that, the commentator here says that, this is another commentator. Why bother asking these questions? What we call as purushartha. People have different goals. In Indian thing, there are 4 main goals. Most people are choosing. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which we say, which is that seeking of wealth or material thing, desires or personal passions, desires, and righteousness, living a good life, and finally moksha, liberation. So why is he asking this question about something which in reality doesn't have any practical value? This is, if you really look at it, why is somebody asking this question on the highest purpose of life? This is called the highest Purushartha. Why do we want to ask? See, if somebody is going through some problem in life, let's say you don't have a job, proper job, you're not earning money, then we should focus on that, ask about that. If somebody has some problem with their society, you should ask about that. Or in some cases, people these days, the country is torn in war, the environment is not good. Then you ask for that so that the place may be peaceful, may there be peace on earth. So that is more practical, more tangible. Why ask about something like this? That too, why waste a boon like that? Why? So this is a fundamental question to all of us. Why are we here today? Why are we seeking the highest goal of life? Why not spend the time doing something practical? So this is where that question there is being asked. See, this problem of life, if you really look at it, even if somebody has all the things in life. Let us take, for example, someone has he or she is well off. They're rich. They have good health. Then they have a good family. They have good people around them. A country where there is no war. Of course, it's the chances of that is it's almost nil. But let's say if somebody has all that, then is there motivation to seek this Purushartha for that person? Very little, right? Why would anybody want to seek this? So this is where we say, the earth has a practical value. Living on earth, rather than living on heavens, rather than seeking to go ahead in heavens and all that, there is one practical value. And that is that suffering is a useful tool. That suffering is a prop. It is a prod for waking up. It is a potential wake-up call from a person who has the right wisdom, that right knowledge. So that right in our suffering of life, that goal of consciousness, realizing that goal. It is like, a one way to look at it is if somebody wants to have a good livelihood, has a career, some job they want, and then they are hoping to, they want to earn money. Then they are struggling. They are writing exams to pass some exam and taking some, lot of trouble, studies and all that. But let's say, for example, they have some talent, maybe movie, art, music or something, and then they become successful at that. Then they leave that studies, that school and all that. They're not worried about that, right? Because that what was supposed to be attained, they have attained. Similarly, this goal of liberation, freedom from suffering, it is a real goal of all our efforts. It is not that this seeking of liberation is a priority. It is a real goal. It is a real purpose of life. So from the Vedanta point, when we ask people, like just as how worldly people normally, what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of my living? The purpose of your life is to wake up to consciousness, to realize consciousness. And more importantly, to realize the true joy of life. That joy which is unending joy. All other joys are relative joy. They come and go. So this essence of yourself is the Chidananda Rupa. That consciousness is that joy, that unceasing, endless joy. So it is the only question we should ask. It is not that we should even think that this really the question. And so in one way, this is the most important thing. I'm not saying this because I'm a sannyasi and I have to convince all of you and all that, Yeah, it's for me also. It's for all of us. That one purpose of life is to wake up to consciousness, realize our true self, or to realize God, that ultimate God. There is all other purposes are really supplementary purposes. So if somebody comes to us and then they say, I'm worried about this, I need to do that. And then we say, okay, take care of that, because that worry is so nagging, then we are not able to do that. So if somebody has health problems, then they need to take care of that, because then they're not able to do sadhana or all that. But ideally, a real person is, even though whether there's health, whether there's money or whatever it is, their mind is still trying to attain that and abide in that consciousness. So this is the ultimate thing, even like where we see in the life of saints, their health is broken down, but still they're anchored in that. So that is that highest goal, and really the only goal, because that one goal fulfills all our goals of life. So this is an important question which Nachiketa has asked, and this really should be the only question for all of us. So now how do we get this? This is the last point I will bring up. If I can see this, what happens after death? If I knew very clearly through my eyes, ears, nose, senses, if I can get this information through my senses, like if when the person is dying, if I can sit very closely and I watch that there is a very subtle body that slips out of that person's death, then probably, I could say there is something after death, right? So many times, like it's those of you seen in Rishikesh, in all the Ganga, near Ganga, people will bring the dead and all that. There are people, many sadhus are waiting and watching. So many say, they were trying to watch when the body is slip out of when that soul is slipping out of the body. So if this was something like that, then I could have very easily, everyone would have got it. We may have needed some close observation skills or some microscope or something, and we could have got it. But the problem is the entity, what we're calling Atma, soul, it is not a subtle thing. So any kind of physical apparatus, whether it's our eyes or microscope, we cannot see this. So it is not available. This information Nachiketa would not have asked if it was available through senses. Now the thing is, maybe intellectually I can figure this out, just like how scientists are mostly trying to do, or using some apparatus. Intellectually, maybe I could have figured this out. So I can guess and all that. But a lot of times that all that information we have is that limited to this world. We don't know about anything. So no matter how much research we do, that ability to go into that heavens and other lokas, that information is not available for us. So not having that, we cannot use that anumana pramana, we say. We cannot use deduction, we cannot use comparison, we cannot use any kind of intellectual processes to come to this. So then the only thing left is, there are two ways. One is we go by someone's experience who say this is true. But what if somebody is hallucinating? Like sometimes people say they see ghosts or they see that. So what if that person is having some experience? Can we go through one person's experience? So this is where in a general spiritual thing, we don't go by one person's experience, even though if it is that person is a spiritual person, even if he says he's a guru and all that, we don't go by one person's experience. And here is where, if that person is in line with that shastras, if he's in line with the tradition of teachings, who all have endorsed that experience through their own personal realization, like the rishis have, then what happens? Then we know that not only it is a realized experience, but it is a realized experience of many sages. And that ultimate truth in essence is one. See, that nature of truth mentioned in different ways in different things has to be one. And this is what the Vedas has tried to do. So different Upanishads are told by different rishis, but the essence of all that they are saying is the same. So they may tell creation came through this and creation will end through that. So all there may be differences. Even in Vedas, you will see that. But they will never deny what is the essence of Atma, what is the essence of consciousness. So this thing here, it has become an Upanishad. It is qualified as a Vedas and Upanishad because this truth is not an individualized truth of one entity who is not in line with the Vedas, like the Buddha or any modern day guru who claims on their own. It is not like that. Here, the essence of what Yama is going to say further is in line with the tradition of Vedas and Upanishads. So his personal realization is equated with that realization of all the rishis. So then for all of us, we have a very clear vision. See, this is the beauty and this is the path of the Upanishads. Giving the right vision to the sadhaka. If you don't have a right vision, you're going to seek lower visions, lower goals. So even whether we feel we are ready or not, we should we should strive to hold the highest vision in our life, the highest goal in life. So yata drishti tata sadhana. How our vision is, so our practices have. And then that's why Bhagavan says, yo yatha mam prapadyante tham tathaiva bhajamyaham. Just as how somebody worships me, so I will reward them. So if somebody says that, I'm in so much, then God will say, yes, okay, I will reward you like that. But if somebody is like Nachiketa, somebody says, Nachiketa is saying, I want to know the highest truth. He's not happy with just knowing about heavens. So that should be the goal. That should be the question for all of us. What is the highest goal? What is the highest vision?